It's NBA Coast to Coast. He's Casey Stern. I'm Cyrus Sotzes. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the NFL, training camps. Wait, no, we're actually an NBA show. Let's talk Olympics. Team USA is in it. You ready, Casey?
I am ready. Let's roll.
Let's do it. Oh, yeah. His name is Casey Stern. You can follow him on all social media platforms at his name. It's super easy. It's at, well, no, I shouldn't say all social media platforms, but Twitter is the main one you're on. It's at Casey Stern because I completely forgot that your Instagram account is like, you can tell people what it is.
Unfiltered with Casey Stern.
There you go. Is it all just one word? Unfiltered with Casey Stern?
Well, all Instagram accounts are one word for the most part. They can follow at signs, but yeah, it's
well,
at
they got underscores. They got
no underscores.
Okay, gotcha. So you have it like a 20-character Instagram handle. I love it. I'm impressed they even let that happen. You can follow me on Instagram, on Threads at Dog Wild, and I am on Elon's cesspool of an excuse for a social media platform at Surf Journalist if you want to engage with me there. And the program is actually on Twitter as well. It's NBA_Coast to Coast, number 2 in there. Before we get started, Casey, we've got a client. We have a sponsor that we want to give love to, and that is Bet Online. They sponsor both our programs. It's the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting right now. Casey, this is a hell of a deal. You can receive a 50% free bet up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. Casey, I don't know if you're a gambling man or not. We haven't really gone down that avenue in terms of getting to know each other, but are you a gambling man? Regardless of the answer, is there anything in the Olympics that has stuck out to you in terms of betting spreads?
Betting spreads with the Olympics, I'd be better suited to tell you about fairy tales and godmothers and some of the stuff that my 7-year-old watches than betting spreads at the Olympics. But betting in general, I've had a lot of experience in my past with betting.
You're having mic issues. That's okay, man. It's okay. It happens to the best of us. And I'm guessing it's the cable. We were having.
Sorry about that. The last time I placed a bet was Chris Chandler and the Atlanta Falcons against, I think this is the Broncos in the Super Bowl. The one, not the one that the Dirty Bird that they won, but the one that the Falcons ended up losing by like 1 million points. And I think they were getting 17, I want to say. But that was the last time that I actually placed a wager. So I like having fun. I like odds. I like helping people with picks. If I was betting with my own money, I would lose.
That was a Chris Chandler reference, dude. That was back in like 98, 25, 26 years ago. That was a long ass time ago. And Chris Chandler, he was a good QB for a year, for a couple of years. Anyways, that's interesting. But the point is, Bet Online is our sponsor. And if you want to bet on any of the action, they've got every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. And when the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet Online. The game starts here. Casey, Team USA played their first game, and that's pretty much all going on in the NBA right now or in professional basketball. It's the Olympics. I have no idea what we would be even talking about if the Olympics was not happening right now. I have no clue. I don't know how people filled content at this time 2 years ago, because last year we had FIBA, so there was still some stuff going on. So they beat Serbia, a team that I think you've said in previous years. Oh, I lost you, and now you're back. Sorry. There you go. Are you doing okay?
Yeah, good. Yep.
So they played Serbia twice now. Once was an exhibition, and then the opening match in group play was also Serbia, and they took care of business, man. It was a healthy margin of victory. They won by like 26 or something like that. Your immediate reaction to that game, before we get into the nuance, there's a lot to break down, but what was your immediate reaction, Casey, to Team USA starting off Olympic play spectacularly?
Well, I think overall, the story is the fact that, I don't know why my mic keeps doing that, but the overall, the story is that this is kind of what we thought would happen when this counted, that this team would step up and play the way that they were capable of playing. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is Kevin Durant, who was the star of the game. I mean, for him to come out and to literally have no practice, be injured, have not played since April, I think was the last time that he had played basketball.
Oh, now we just lost you entirely. It's got to be that cable. Can you switch it over to your computer mic? It'd be better than this. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Oh man, I guarantee in Casey's mind he wants to destroy the earth. I can just feel the rage coming from you. I get it, and I get it. I'd be losing my shit right now. Can we do computer mic, or are you just out for the day? Well, while he's doing that, I'm gonna queue up. Casey's figuring that out real fast, and it's not a big deal, man. I promise. But it was a dominating performance, but there was some drama within the action, and that drama came in the form of Jason Tatum not getting any minutes. He was DNP'd. And why don't we hear from Steve Kerr to start the action? Steve Kerr was asked about that. This was courtesy of ESPN's Brian Windhorst, who had a chance to interview him. For some reason, I didn't see a traditional press conference setting following this game. I don't know if that's just Olympic style, the way they do it in the Olympics. We don't get, typical Q&As after each game. But Steve Kerr was quoted as saying, "I felt like an idiot not playing him." And why don't we hear from Steve Kerr more specifically in terms of the context surrounding his decision to not play Jason Tatum?
This is one of the things that happens when you're the coach of Team USA. You guys play your best game of the whole summer to this point, but you didn't get to use Jason Tatum, who's obviously one of the best players in the league. Obviously, that's one of the hard things to do in your role.
Yeah, it's tough, but Jason handled it really well. I talked to him today before the game that it may play out this way, just with Kevin coming back and the lineups that I wanted to get to. But that'll change. Jason's going to play. Every game's going to be different based on matchups. He's a total pro. He's, first team All-NBA 3 years in a row. I felt like an idiot not playing him. But in a 40-minute game, you can't play more than 10. You really can't. And, so I think he's an amazing guy, great player, and handled it beautifully. And, he'll be back out there next game.
Your thoughts, Casey, to Steve Kerr's comments? We got you.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, can you hear me okay? The first thing is
better than nothing. Yes.
The first thing is that the idea that you put together a headline of an article, "I felt like an idiot for not playing him," and then don't put the rest of the quote is typical the business that I work in. Because
you mean that little blurb, that little meme I showed first?
Because I read the same thing, and then I had heard that, yesterday, his comments, and he had talked to him before the game. It was kind of the plan. The same time you look at the way they use minutes, Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid all played a bunch of minutes. That would never happen in a regular game because you'd never have those three guys on a team, but you could tell the amount of size that they wanted on the floor, and especially with Kevin Durant, who, even though he started on the bench, played a lot of minutes. It is, and you got LeBron. So, how many guys between, the heights of 6'9" and 7 feet do you need out on the floor at the same time, unfortunately? So if Jason Tatum was a tiny guard, he would have had an opportunity to have more floor time. But, look, I think, as Steve Kerr pointed out, different matchups will be handled differently. So there'll be times he'll get plenty of play. And, before you get into the medal round, I think you get into getting a chance to kind of see how some of these matchups look and some of the rotations work before you get there. But the way that LeBron, for anybody who watched this game, the way LeBron and Kevin Durant were playing, you didn't need Jason Tatum on the floor. And, that's a role he would be playing if either one of the two weren't in those positions. But with the way that if LeBron and Kevin Durant play that way, there's no team that's going to beat them. And there would be other Olympic teams of the U.S. variety in recent years that would lose to this team if they had Kevin Durant and LeBron playing as well. That is how good both of those players were in game one.
They were phenomenal. They were absolutely phenomenal. Kevin Durant did not miss a shot, I believe, in the entire first half. Made his first 8, finished 8 of 9, I believe, overall. And I think he was 5 of 5 from deep, if I have my stats correct. But what is your answer to this, man? Mark Graves in the chat writes, if that was the plan, then how could you feel like an idiot?
Because that's not what he said. Let's go back and play the comment again. I mean, I hate when
we'll play it again. Okay, let's
play it again.
Go
Let's
play it
hear
again.
Steve Kerr one more time. Again, this was his comments to Brian Windhorst following Team USA's win over Serbia, where Jason Tatum, who, by the way, was second on the team in the last Olympics in total minutes in the gold medal game, and now he's getting DNPs. Kind of interesting. Here is Steve Kerr again.
This is one of the things that happens when you're the coach of Team USA. You guys play your best game of the whole summer to this point, but you didn't get to use Jason Tatum, who's obviously one of the best players in the league. Obviously, that's one of the hard things to do in your role.
Yeah, but Jason handled it really well. I talked to him today before the game that it may play out this way, just with Kevin coming back and the lineups that I wanted to get to. But that'll change. You know, Jason's going to play. Every game's going to be different based on matchups. He's a total pro. He's, first team All NBA 3 years in a row. I felt like an idiot not playing him. But in a 40-minute game, you can't play more than 10. You really can't. And, so I think he's an amazing guy, great player, and handled it beautifully. And, he'll be back out there next game.
If you read the context of that and afterwards are writing, no offense, that, look, now hopefully that person has been cleared up, because what he's saying is when you don't play a Jason Tatum, considering how great of a player that is, you feel like there must be something wrong. I feel like it's a tongue in cheek. I feel like an idiot not playing Jason Tatum. But you had LeBron and Kevin Durant out on the floor with Joel Embiid. And, Jason Tatum wasn't going to play point guard. So, sorry. I mean, they also played their best game in the tournament. So we're going to complain when they don't play well. And we're going to say they suck, because we got nothing better to do than to sit there and shit on Team USA and find reasons that they're bad because we're bored and it's not good enough to watch great talent. And then on the other side, we're going to sit there and say when they play their best game that they didn't play the right way, or that Steve Kerr didn't play the right people, or whatever the case might be. Look, there are going to be games where Jason Tatum's going to play more. There are going to be games where LeBron's not going to be shooting well and he's not going to play as much. There's going to be games where I'm sure they're going to give rest because guys are going to be banged up and not play back-to-back days. So I think everyone's going to play. Even Tyrese Halliburton, who hasn't sniffed the floor really in any of these games, is going to get some minutes. But clearly, you could see what he's doing. He's going to play Jrue Holiday a ton because of his defense, and that's going to clog up a guard spot. And when they're feeling well, LeBron, Durant, and Embiid are going to be who's on the floor. And, that's why Jason Tatum's not on the floor. If the reason he's not on the floor is because LeBron and Kevin Durant are better than he is, or at least are playing better than he is, because we know Kevin Durant is, you can make an argument about LeBron at this age if you want. But if the reasons that he's not on the floor are that maybe the best player that's ever lived, clearly top 5, and maybe the unicorn most talented player that's ever lived, and clearly current top 2 or 3 in Durant, are on there instead of him, I think we got to put this into context. Let's be fair.
All right, so let's add some context then, because I think the issue here is, and Casey, this experience leads into why Warriors fans, myself included, have been driven insane by Steve Kerr's decisions. It's not his coaching, it's not his schematics, it's not his play calling, it's not the system that he runs offensively. Defensively, slightly different story. Ron Adams, I'll forever give him credit for what he brought to the table, and he's missed on these nightly games in the regular season. But I digress. Steve Kerr has sometimes a problem with playing the right people. And you mentioned Kevin Durant, you mentioned LeBron James, fine. But would you? I don't know if you agree with this, what I'm about to say here or not. But Jason Tatum, at least from my perspective, is a Swiss Army knife of a player. Like he's one of the few players in the game, and I think this is one of many reasons why he is special, is because he can play 1 through 5. He could play the point if you have to have him in there handling the ball. He can play small ball center if you have to, given he's 6'9", 6'10", and he's not weak. He's not a frail dude out there. He's not skinny like Durant. Yet in a game like this, he's DNP'd. He had the second most minutes in a gold medal game in the last Olympics 3 years ago. Kevin Durant was the only player that played more than him. Again, gold medal affair. And when I'm looking at this roster, the part of it that doesn't pass the smell test for me is Derek White getting almost 16 minutes and Jason Tatum, who is a far superior player, who, I'm sorry, I know Derek White's good. This is not a disrespect to Derek White, but Jason Tatum can do everything Derek White can do, regardless of how Derek White played. In those 16 minutes, he was, I think, like a plus 15 in terms of net rating. There's no doubt what he did out there was good. But I don't think Jason Tatum would be any different, if not better. How do you justify Derek White getting more minutes than Jason Tatum? If I'm Tatum, that perturbs me a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
What position does Derek White play?
It's a positionless game. How does that matter? We could talk about skill sets.
Because it matters. Because it matters. Because
Why?
Jason Tatum's because it matters. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the way that Steve Kerr has played this team, if you're watching it, he's playing a 3-guard set most of the time because he's got Devin Booker and Steph Curry out there most of the time, and Drew Holiday out there with them. Those are the 3 he wants out there. Holiday to protect with the defense. I mean this in the nicest way. I find this hilarious because they won by 26 points.
Yeah.
And you were, not just you, but everybody wanted to give this team shit because they weren't playing well enough and beating teams by a lot. They just won by 26 points, I think it was.
Yes.
Right? That's pretty good.
That is
Against
good, yeah.
Serbia. I believe that Jokic guy's on that team, if I remember correctly. I think he's okay. They won by 26 points, and it's one game. And he said beforehand, he explained to Tatum based on the different groups that he would play or not play. So at the end of the day, so you tell me that you think you're going to put Jason Tatum, so you want to put LeBron in the backcourt with Steph Curry and have Jason Tatum out there. At the end of the day, look who the minutes were handled to. He obviously was playing with a lot of size. I think there are going to be plenty of games where you're not going to have as much. There are going to be games where Adebayo is not going to get a lot of minutes or Anthony Davis is not. But because of the fact that they were dealing with Jokic, you saw Embiid started the game, only played 11 minutes. Well, how do you justify Embiid only playing 11 minutes? Did Embiid even take a shot?
Well, because
How many
Embiid's
shots
been
did
playing like shit. Embiid's out of shape. Embiid's playing like
I
shit.
understand that, but the more that happened, I don't understand what the big deal is. Honestly, I'm sorry. They won by 26. Durant was amazing. LeBron at his age, what he's doing is fantastic. And, for Steve Kerr, there are going to be times where I think you're going to see LeBron play less minutes. There are going to be times where Tatum will play more. And at the end of the day, when it comes down to the medal round, that's when it matters most. This was the first game. They won by 26 points. So is it about winning or is it about who you play? It's about somehow Steve Kerr made some asinine decision that they only won by 26 points. And as far as the Derek White thing, I'm sorry. I mean, we could talk about positionless basketball all we want, but guards still play and forwards still play. And Jason Tatum's not playing point guard. So, when Derek White is out there, he's out there and he's got the ball and he wasn't shooting. How many times did he shoot? Did he take any shots? I don't even know how many shots Derek White took.
Well, I mean, he's not out there for offense, though. I mean, Derek White is out there primarily for defense. Would you agree?
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
But when you got him and Drew Holiday out there late in the game, which is what was happening, what do you think the plan is? The plan is there to play defense, right? So you want to put Tatum's going to replace one of the two of them? No. So who's he going to play? You got to take LeBron off the floor? Fine. You want to take LeBron off the floor? You can.
This is where you and I guess we disagree. Why can't Jason? Are you saying
for who
can't play the guard position? Like,
no,
he can't.
But who's gonna who is he going to play for late in the game? Are you going to take Holiday out? Or are you going to take who are you going to take out off the floor at the end of the game?
I don't know what happened at the end of the game. That's not. I don't think that's even that's a whole other conversation.
So what is it? They won by 26.
Well, they won by but again, it's okay. I guess the reason why
I don't get it, and I mean this in the nicest way. I don't get it, and I think if it wasn't Steve Kerr, it wouldn't be a problem.
Was Jason Tatum one of the 2 best players to win a title this year?
Yes,
that's
to win a title. Yes, is he a better player than Kevin Durant? No.
But again, Jason, you don't have to affect Durant's minutes. My point is, like, why is Derek White?
Minutes.
Why is Derek White taking Tatum's minutes when they can play the exact same position, do the exact same things, except Tatum can do them better? And keep in mind, they played Serbia before. They also beat them by 26 last time, and Tatum did play in that game, which adds to the perplexity of him getting a.
I think the obsession with Steve Kerr is why there's perplexity. At the end of the day, I think it's that's odd that he didn't play. That's about as far as I would go. I'm sure he'll play a lot in the second game, and I think that there will be times where other guys will play less. But I think part of it came down to how well Durant was playing, and I'm more with Steve Kerr than you are on the fact that no, I don't think it's as positionless as you're making it if you're trying to match up against a team specifically. And I think the way that Steve...
You got cut out again. Lost you. Can't hear you. We lost you again. Are you back? Still can't hear you, brother. I'm sorry. I don't know. I know I can't hear you, man. I can't hear you. The audience cannot hear you, brother. Can you just go back to the webcam or the web mic?
If you're going to have Jason Tatum out there on the team, he's going to play. I don't give a shit how many minutes he played in game one because they won by 26 and it's not a medal game. So I get it. But even Steve Kerr in that sense was tongue in cheek. Tatum doesn't have a problem with it. And when you play on teams like this, these are things that are going to happen. And I think when you shorten the rotation, wait until he's not playing 10 because he's playing 10 now. When he gets to the gold medal round, he's going to play probably 7 or 8 and play less. And LeBron and Durant are going to be out there a lot. So look, I love Jason Tatum. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he will play plenty of minutes. But if you look at even the way that the minutes were run in this game, look, I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't. If it happens 3 games in a row, it's fine. But I think the obsession with Steve Kerr is the reason why it's a big deal.
But again, the obsession isn't just me. In case that's what you're wondering.
No, I think the audience. This is
the talking point of every major show today. Because this is weird. It is unusual and it goes beyond just Jason Tatum. It's the Celtics have 4 superstar players, right? 4 all-star caliber players. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Jrue Holiday. 3 of those 4 are currently on this Olympic team. Derek White was a last-minute alternate for Kawhi Leonard, who cannot go because of the leg. And the thing is, so the Derek White thing, it's like he's superseded not 1 but 2 of his teammates, and this is a story for a lot of reasons. Let me share something else because this dives into something a little bit bigger, and it's Team USA in general, and who they went with in terms of who should be playing. And here was Grant Hill. So the 2 people leading Team USA right now, it's Grant Hill, who I don't know what his title is, like director of operations or whatever, and then there's Steve Kerr, who's the head coach, and this was Jaylen Brown has not been happy about the fact that he was left off Team USA. And, the quote from Grant Hill was, I always love a good conspiracy theory, but it was truly a basketball decision, referring to Jaylen Brown because Jaylen Brown came out and said that he didn't make the team because he is not a Nike athlete. And we could have a whole other discussion about the influence of Nike and just how powerful they are in terms of the ultimate decisions being made in the men's basketball landscape and maybe women's basketball as well. I'm not as versed or informed on that side of things. But Jaylen Brown came back and said, Grant Hill calling me a conspiracy theorist is disappointing. I've been a VP since 21. I have a great understanding. And here is Grant Hill going into a little more detail in terms of the decision to add Derek White over Jaylen Brown.
Capable and very, very.
Call Jaylen Brown to tell him or explain this to him?
I spoke to his agent and, I spoke to his agent. We, I don't know if that was before or after, things went out on Twitter. But yeah, I mean, I think this idea that there's a conspiracy theory. I always love a good conspiracy theory, but it was really truly a basketball decision, and these are tough decisions, but having gone through this with the FIBA competition, you want to find the right balance and the right pieces on the court that we needed. And not to say that he wouldn't have been good. There's a lot of guys. You can go on a list of guys who are very capable and very, very, very qualified. But, for where we were, it was the right decision. And Derek White, I think, will help us as we pursue goal.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I worked with Grant Hill for 7 years, and he's one of the nicest humans that I've ever met. So I'm a huge fan of him personally. I think, do I think Nike plays a factor? Yeah, of course. Of course. Do I think that's the only factor? I don't. Is this the first time? I don't mean to laugh, but is this the first time that we've seen, teams that are Olympic teams in several different sports where decisions are made and they don't take the best player, but they take the best fit, it's not. I mean, no offense, but in 1980, we won with college kids because
Yeah.
Herb Brooks went out there and said, we can't beat Russia with all-stars, which people thought was nuts. Now, that's an extreme, clearly, but between then and now, in all different sports, we've had all sorts of times where you can't put together all-star teams never win. Part of the problem that the U.S. has had in past years with basketball is throwing a bunch of guys out there that are stars who can't play together and don't give a shit and have no chemistry. That's why they don't win. That's why we had the disaster that we had going back a decade ago. But I think when you look at this right now with this team, I think, yeah, Jaylen Brown is better than, he's better than not only Derek White, he's better than other players that are on this team, on this roster. Do I think that he's not on here because of Nike? I think it's possible. But Derek White is that, look, Drew Holiday's here for one reason. Same reason, defense. That's what they went with. I mean, it's a different game. It's a shorter game. The international game is different, and this is what they went with. I just, to me, it's like I watched this game and I marveled over the beauty of Kevin Durant. I'm sitting there watching LeBron at his age. I mean, that's what I'm enjoying. So, maybe it's just me, but I think, from the Jaylen Brown standpoint, I love watching Jaylen Brown play, and I love his fire, and I love all of that compete level, and I think it would have been great. But it's a small roster. I mean, I remind people, Tyrese Halliburton may never play in this thing. And when he was healthy, I mean, he was taking the Pacers literally on his back with, go look at the rest of the players he was doing it with, and was a major factor for one of the best teams in the league. And he's never going to sniff the court. So, I think they're playing who Steve Kerr and Grant Hill. And look, by the way, also ironically, going back to the Jason Tatum thing, it's like Grant Hill's like his idol. So, it's like, we're talking about from not only Duke, but literally across the board. And, Grant, obviously, G's got a lot involved in terms of the way that this team is played. So I don't think there's any anti-Jason Tatum thing there either, because I know the relationship the two of those guys have.
Right, but Grant Hill's not coaching, so that's kind of
but I think, but I don't, I'm not that concerned about it. And for me, the Jaylen Brown thing, I think yeah, it's possible. It's possible.
What were you referring to? Because I feel like all this discussion leads to a bigger philosophical debate that I wanted to have. And I know we're wrapping up here. We got a few minutes remaining, but it's about, when you're forming a team, whether you should be focused more on fit or on talent, right? Like Jerry West's philosophy as a GM was always just give me the best players and give me a great coach and he'll figure it out. But what we're seeing here with these decisions, and it's affecting the two Celtics players, Tatum in terms of the last game, Jaylen Brown in terms of the roster in general, is you're seeing Team USA making these decisions of fit over talent. I want to take a step back real fast before we get into that. You said Team USA blew it. When did that happen? They've only not gotten gold once, and that was 2004. Like, what is that?
Yeah, I'm talking about 2004. Yeah,
but 2004, that was like talent-wise one of the worst teams. I mean, the roster was. It was Stephon Marbury was on that team. Carlos Boozer was on that team. Emeka Okafor was on that team. Like that was just a bad collection of players. Is that the one you're referring to? Like
they won by 26. I don't know. I mean, I was coming on here. I wanted to talk about LeBron. Like I wanted, like, to me, they won by 26 points.
Yeah,
that's good. Like it was a great first game, and to me, look for, if they're Warrior fans who were watching and listening, it's like, hey, not marvel about Kevin Durant and, just how amazing of a talent this guy is and what you guys had the pleasure of getting to watch and thinking about just how great he was in that game. Look, I'm just enjoying the basketball. For me, it's a lot of fun to watch these guys play. I think Tatum will get plenty of minutes, and I'm not too worried about it. The Jaylen Brown thing is interesting, but I think White was purely a fit because Jaylen Brown is a better player than Drew Holiday. So, clearly going back to positionless, forget about the whole idea of, Derek White. I mean, Jaylen Brown is better than Drew Holiday too. So it's not just Derek White, but I think it was clearly in both cases defense. I mean, that's what they've decided is going to win this thing because it is different. Because international play is different. The games are shorter, And these guys, a lot of these guys have played together. Team chemistry is not an issue for a lot of these other teams because they're playing together on the side. Jokic walks in, but a lot of those players in Serbia are playing together all the time, like some of these guys are on their own teams, which, by the way, is another reason why it's good to have, 3 Celtics on the team, which certainly you can make a case to have 4, right? If you want to talk about all the chemistry. But I don't have a problem with the Derek White minutes and necessarily in game 1. Let's see how the rest of the tournament is played out, because I'll use the hockey, which is a sport that I love. You go watch the Olympics. In a lot of these sports, you'll see goalies play different games in the first couple of rounds before you get to the medal round. They'll switch up lines and minutes and all sorts of things until they kind of figure out where guys are going to be heading into the medal round. You're looking at pitchers and figuring out kind of who's going to be your starting pitcher when you get into I don't think it's going to be any different. I think Jason Tatum will be on the floor when it matters in a lot of important games, including in the ones that count. I think he'll be there.
Yeah, I think the egregious part with Jaylen Brown is that he got passed over twice.
Yeah.
And if Jaylen Brown was a bad defensive player, it would make more sense. But he's an elite defensive player.
No, I agree.
Who's
Nike
bigger than those two guys, who was
Nike
the finals and Eastern Conference Finals MVP. If I'm Jaylen Brown, I am livid. And here's the thing: if I'm Jason, first of all, I don't look. We can talk all day about how Team USA, they won that game. It's awesome. LeBron James he's been phenomenal, man. The guy's 39 years old. I don't, if we could sit all day and praise him, but at the same time, just doing nothing but talking about the good things, that's not going to move the needle, Casey. That's why I'm trying to find topics here that are actually engaging and potentially divisive, because that's what will generate clicks without us actually compromising our integrity here. So that's why I'm finding these specific topics, so we can actually get people interested. But when it comes to the Jason Tatum thing, I like to put myself in the individual's shoes, right? For me as an individual, I find it interesting trying to gain perspective from as many different unique individuals as possible out there, because everyone has a different background. Everyone has their own experience. And when it comes to Jason Tatum, we haven't heard from him, right? And part of the reason why, for me personally, having covered Steve Kerr as diligently as I have for the last near 10 years, he's done this quite a bit. Like, he did this with Moses Moody, where he would tell him, hey, look, man, you might not play this game. And he said that before, and I've heard this, it's a broken record, right? He'll tell his players, you might not. He won't tell them you're not going to play. You might not. So it's not like Jason Tatum was prepared to get a DNP. He was maybe preparing for the possibility of it. But I put myself in Jason Tatum's shoes, and I'm thinking to myself, if you're Jason Tatum, why the F am I sitting here watching my lesser teammate Derek White, my lesser teammate Drew Holiday, who I can play better than in every aspect? I'm a better defender. I'm a better ball handler. I'm a better shooter. Why am I getting DNP'd and they're not? I would be livid if I'm Jason Tatum. That's the angle of this I'm looking at, where I'm thinking to myself, that's interesting. Would you not agree? And what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, I think it's one game. I mean, it's one game. I think he'll play. I don't know why he didn't play. Look, I mean, Kevin Durant shouldn't be coming off the bench. He should be starting. And I think
that's another point.
But that was for people who've been following, that was because he hadn't played at all. I mean, he didn't get cleared until I think it was 90 minutes before this game started.
Right.
He wasn't available. So Durant's going to start, but so that will change things in addition to all of this, because Durant wasn't supposed to be on the bench anyway. So I don't know kind of where it factored in terms of how he got no minutes. It is weird, especially because they were leading late. I just don't think, to go back to the conspiracy theory thing, even though that was in the Jaylen Brown comments with Grant Hill, I'm not going to make more of it until I see what happens in game 2. And
I wish conspiracies were still fun to discuss, by the way, Casey. Like,
they are sometimes.
Sometimes. It used to be almost all the time.
They are some. You got to be careful. They are sometimes. But I think that I think he'll play plenty of minutes in game 2. I think it's odd. I don't think it's criminal. I don't think it's atrocious. I don't think it's a controversy until we see what happens in the second game. And as far as, Steve Kerr, and, I'm sure, with no offense to Moses Moody, that he's treating Jason Tatum with more respect, and the players in this team with more respect. And, part of what happens when you play in a team like this is that you've got to be. And by the way, U.S. teams that have lost, the mistake they make is they don't play players based on, how well they're playing. I mean, one thing that, it's not the Olympics, but in the World Baseball Classic, in the first one, and I've covered a bunch of them, but in the first one that the U.S. was in, Derek Jeter was old and kind of washed up and was starting the games and playing half of them. And then in the middle of the game, they'd put Jimmy Rollins in, and he was having all the better at-bats. But every single game, Davey Johnson, who was the manager, was putting Derek Jeter out there because that's who Derek Jeter is.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Steve Kerr, that's where this is going to get interesting, is, if LeBron's not playing well in a game, how much does he sit? And, if you sit there and Devin Booker doesn't have the hot hand and isn't shooting well, then do you go with Tatum and go with size and go back to two guards and things of that? Like how those adjustments, they didn't have to make many. I think it'll be more interesting when it's a closer game. But I think part of this is matchups. I go back to the fact that, some of those minutes that Adebayo and Anthony Davis were playing and Joel Embiid, all those three guys are not going to get a lot of minutes in every game. I think some of that came down with not figuring out how to, nobody can handle with Jokic. So I'm curious to see with maybe teams that get up and down the floor more and are not so much about men in the middle, whether or not you see positionless on the other side where they don't have any big men on the floor, and then you see Tatum, Durant, and James out there together, and I think that'll happen often. I do.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Joel Embiid even getting 11 minutes? He's been one of the worst players for Team USA. And part of the Steve Kerr thing, I don't know if you're aware of this, and earlier this year, back in like April or March or something like that, he did an interview with Sam Gordon, who was a beat reporter, San Francisco Chronicle, and it was a great line of questioning where Sam was asking Steve, like, what goes into your decision-making process, right? And it was such a subtle thing, and this I'm still bewildered as to why this did not become like a national news story, because it was literally getting into Steve Kerr's mind and his thought process behind these big decisions. And Steve Kerr's answer was, I rely on my gut. And that was such an unacceptable answer to me. Like when in a 2024, when we as humans have evolved to the point where we can not only invent the most craziest things, but we have this unbelievable brain that can use logic and reasoning to deduce what the best answers routinely are. You have Steve Kerr, whose answer is, well, I rely on intuition. I rely on my gut. And that's why when I heard that was like kind of like the exclamation point on me understanding why oftentimes this guy makes the decisions he does that doesn't make any damn sense. And Joel Embiid starting, make that make sense, especially given Anthony Davis has been playing far superior basketball. What are your thoughts, Casey?
I don't know how much has to do with the fact that he chose Team USA. Because that was turned into a major decision that he decided to play for Team USA, because clearly, it seemed like a weird choice. And that was something that was promoted a lot and marketed a lot heading up to these Olympics, that Joel Embiid made that choice. I don't know if that's part of it, that they are championing that, or, I think the larger part is that maybe back of the baseball card is playing in, because look, when Joel Embiid is healthy and you go back to he's as dominant as any player in the league. Absolutely. We all know that, right? Yeah. And, and this is coming from a Knick fan who enjoys beating him as much as anything. So, but when he's healthy, he's as dominant as anybody. Mm-hmm. And he's not wrong about what he said the other day. He made a quote in practice. He said, if, I'm trying to think what he was saying about if he took 40 shots a game or how many points he could score 50 points. He could score 50 points a game. If you gave Joel Embiid touches over and over and over again and decided that's all you were going to do all game, you can't really stop him. He was talking about without double teams, because you don't have doubles with the amount of stars that they have on the floor. And he said if he wasn't double teamed, he could score 50 a game in the NBA. He's probably not wrong, to be honest. But I think the eye test needs to come in. And look, the good thing about the gut is that a lot of times it comes with that eye test. And a lot of the older coaches use that. It's interesting because Steve Kerr's not an old coach, but Tom Thibodeau, a lot of those, the guys who've been around a long time will use that kind of a thing. Yeah. Dusty Baker, who's a friend of mine, by the way, just won a World Series before he retired.
Nice name drop there. Yeah. Dusty go way back, apparently.
A lot of the old guys, well, he sat next to me on set for a while.
Yes, he did. I remember that. Yeah. It was TBS, right? Or TBS.
But a lot of those old guys use the eye test, And I think at some point, hopefully they'll make a change. But I think, look, he started and he only played 11 minutes. So the good news is that they noticed he wasn't playing well, and then they adjusted the minutes on the fly. But if Embiid is right, he causes a lot of problems for the guys on the other side of the floor, trying to figure out how to deal with him. He's more dominant than Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo by a large margin when he's right.
When the Olympics are over and training camp is still a month away, you and I are going to have to come up with some interesting topics of discussion to fill this program with entertaining and informative content. In my opinion, the
Mount
recipe
Rushmore's. Always go to Mount Rushmore's.
I'm glad you said that, because one Mount Rushmore I feel like you and I can present is the Mount Rushmore of underachievers, meaning individuals who, if they actually committed 100% and not 90 or 80 or whatever it is, that who knows what they could end up being as great athletes, right? And Joel Embiid, I think, is one of those, because he clearly is not a 365. I'm doing basketball.
No.
I'm working my body. Luka Doncic is another one, right? Like, if that dude stopped smoking cigarettes and drinking Cokes, like, I don't know what he would become. So that's
pretty good. He's pretty good as is. I'm not going to get on Luka much. He's pretty good.
Well, I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point.
But if he had the Mamba mentality, you're saying, to use the pun. Yes.
Exact, the Mamba mentality. I'm glad. That's a great way of putting it. And then another future show, this is way beyond a Mount Rushmore, is the price of admission list. Rick Barry and I did that once for a show like 5 years ago, and it was a huge hit. I don't know why we never did it again, but next month, you and I should do that as well. A price of admission list where it's a ranking of individual. It's like the NBA League Pass rankings, right? It's like not so much like the best, but who's the most entertaining, like who you actually will pause all of your actions. Like, Casey, one of your kids is screaming because they just shit their pants, and you're going, no. This guy's playing right now.
Luka's up there for me.
Yeah,
way
of course.
Way up
of
there
course.
for me. Yeah, way up there.
Absolutely. Before we go, I know we're wrapping things up here. In your opinion, going back to the whole like a fit versus quality debate, again, Jerry West as a GM, his philosophy was very simple and it was very successful. Just give me the best damn players, right? But that's not the philosophy every front office individual partakes in. Like, some people actually, and this is going to Team USA, where you don't pick the best, you pick who the best fits are. What is your thought process, or what are your opinions on that conflict as a GM? Because some GMs, again, they're just about the best players, and then some GMs are about you take into account chemistry, you take into account maybe like IQ, you're taking into account like specific skill sets, roles. Like, what are your thoughts on that line of thinking?
Well, I think in baseball, it's just the best players because it's a one-on-one game, so that's different. And I think if you're talking about hockey and you're talking about basketball, specifically those two sports, you need fits. A hockey team can't have all guys with speed and then have no size, because all of a sudden, if you get up against a team that's got big defense and is going to rep you up against the boards, you're screwed, right? So you have to have that. And then that, okay, if we have a lot of size and we're slower, we got to then, counteract with some speed. Or, if we have an offensive defenseman that's going to be up in the play all the time, the guy who he plays with has to be a stay-at-home defenseman. Those kind of things exist. Well, in the NBA, it's the same way. I think you always start with the best players, but you can't in the NBA afford 12 best players. It doesn't work that way. Even the super teams have 3 or 4. And to me, I wouldn't say that all 4 are super in that case, right? Usually 3. So I think you're finding the best players at your core, and the rest are fits that fit with them. If your best players are shooters, then I got to make sure I got some size and I got some defense. And if your best player is Steph Curry and he's not a defender, I got to make sure that the guy playing with him can play some defense. That's where fits matter. If I got Steph Curry playing, I could sit there. My guard that's sitting next to him, I don't care if he sits there and scores 5 points a game, as long as he can defend and move the ball and set screens and do what's necessary to help out the team, right? But if, it was the other way and my point guard just is an assist man who can't shoot, then I'm looking for a Devin Booker and a shooter. So I think basketball is always about fits. Anyone who says otherwise, look, is Derek Fisher a great player? Another guy I worked with? No, he's not a great player, but he's a great fit with a lot of those Laker teams as the guy who just kind of ran the ball and did what he needed to do, and then eventually set Kobe up to do the rest with Shaq, right? It wouldn't have worked if you sat there and had Steph Curry out there. It would have been great, but you couldn't afford it, right? And then at the same time, even if they're out there on the floor, then who's going to get the ball and all that? it just kind of worked that way. You know, Rick Fox, think about pieces. And I'm just going, because you mentioned Jerry West, so I got Lakers on the brain.
Yeah.
But you think about, you know, Shaq and Kobe, the rest of those guys were all fit guys. Robert Ory, right? Who was a great fit with how many systems? Why? Because he was lengthy and could shoot and hit big shots, right? Draymond Green allows you to have fits around him. You've never needed, you know, you could have guys in the middle who could just, Isaiah Hartenstein for the Knicks. What was so great about him? The fit that he was, because they had so many guys who could score. So having somebody who could extend plays in the middle, didn't need to have one-on-one game back to the basket, but just could extend plays and pass the ball a little bit. So I think in basketball, one of the great things about building a team is it is hard and it is about fits. But I think it starts with stars and then your fits build around them, the way that I look at it.
Yeah, the Clippers are an example of a team that just went all out. Just give me the best players, you know, regardless of fit. Who knows if that would have worked if health permitted? We never really got a chance to see that.
It didn't with the Blake Griffin variety and Chris Paul and those guys, because they often had the best players and those guys could never get along.
Yeah, that's a whole. Let's save that for another show, because Lob City was. I felt like that was a poorly constructed team. They were missing one or two things that would have carried them over the top. And I've always been a Chris Paul critic. Like, I think he's grossly overrated. Great player, but some people call him the point god. It's like, a little much.
He's a Hall of Famer for sure.
Hall of Famer, no doubt. But some people like considered him like one of the greatest point guards ever. It's like, slow your roll just a little bit on that. A couple things in the chat as we wrap things up, and also even before we get to the chat, we haven't mentioned this once. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Casey Stern's program, and you've heard him mention baseball in this program a lot today for a very good reason. He's not just an NBA guy. He also covers Major League Baseball. I don't know if you cover college baseball, but I don't know how you could cover college baseball, to be honest. So many names. I don't know how far you get into the NFL. You've talked about hockey. Obviously, the point is you cover the gamut, the spectrum of sports. You cover it all. And the program is called Unfiltered. All people have to do is just add your name, Casey Stern, to that. Unfiltered, Casey Stern, folks. Hit that subscribe button and hit the like button, because that helps the algorithm. And then, obviously, if time permits, spit on that thing. Hawk Tua. And then Golden Days is the name of my program. If you're watching this or listening to this through the podcast on Casey's program, Golden Days is much more Warriors and NBA specific. But yeah, hit that subscribe button for all those things if you don't mind. And then last but not least, the chat. Real fast, a few comments here. Want to get to Traveling Urquidez wrote in the chat, if you let the U.S. team get coached by Coach Spo, that who is to me the best coach.
They'd be better. He's a better coach than Steve Kerr.
Oh, okay. So we're in agreement there. Yeah. So he was asking who would be better, who would you pick?
I think they'll win either way, and they're both there. So, you know, and by the way, Ty Lue is great too. You know, so they've got great minds there. Steve Kerr's not by himself.
Yep.
They're gonna Be fine,
Yep.
and I think they're gonna be fine. But yeah, Spoelstra is an all-time coach. All-time coach.
Dr. J30, she adds in the chat that I don't know if this is true or not, but she writes that Kerr said he learned from Eric Spoelstra and Ty Lue that LeBron James was a great player. I don't know.
That's not what in the Windhorst interview, he says something about Spo. He didn't say, he said Spo and Ty just kept telling me over and over again, wait till you see what happens to him when the games matter. It's something to the effect of that, talking about how LeBron turned it on when the games counted. He didn't say he learned but that's an example. That's kind of what I mean right there. He did not say he learned. It's a great, but he
who's this LeBron guy? Oh, he's good. Okay.
He said, I mean, Kerr faced him how many times in the finals? Come on, people. He knows when he was great, right? But
I think Dr. J30, she's been a regular commenter on my show.
Yeah,
I think she's saying that.
But he did say something to the effect that both those guys were telling him how he's going to turn around. Because again, look, LeBron is 40 years old.
It's crazy.
Like it is obscene how well he's playing.
How much are you enjoying watching LeBron and Steph Curry together? I
love it. I think it's chef's kiss. It is amazing. I'm one of the rare people. there are a lot of LeBron haters. You know, I'll say this about, we talk about lists and all this stuff. You know, there's a list of one in terms of guys in my lifetime in any sport, well before I covered sports, even watching it, who have had the amount of expectations and pressure that LeBron had when he was in high school, before he even got to the pros. and all of that, and that have actually exceeded those expectations. It's a list of one because
Yeah.
all of those guys fail. All of them fail publicly. Some of them miserably in terms of the spotlight and the money getting to them. Some of them miserably in terms of the underperformance and all of the expectations getting to them. What he has done in his career and in public life as a human, after all those expectations of us watching him in high school and being like, I can't wait to shit on that guy because he can't be this good. Like, why am I watching your high school games? I don't give a shit. Right? Like, I give him a lot of credit for that. Like, to me, like, because you can't, in the world of social, Jordan did not have to deal with that. Honestly, like, because of social media, it's not even close.
And he was the number 3 pick. He wasn't even the number 1 pick. Right?
Yeah, but it wasn't. But because there's no social media, there's no Twitter, it's a totally different world. LeBron, in an age which is the worst to deal with it, was a guy that literally I've never seen anything like that before. So I don't think he's the best player that's ever lived. Michael Jordan's my guy, but I've got a ton of respect for LeBron because I don't know how he's still playing. He's like a cyborg. And it's crazy, man, because what you were saying about, not maximizing your body, the Mamba mentality, the one thing we don't want to be honest about is even though LeBron doesn't have the Mamba mentality maybe in the fourth quarter of a game the way that Kobe used to have, he's not going to pass it to Kyle Korver in the corner and allow them to lose. Kobe wouldn't do that, right? But LeBron off the floor in terms of training and preparation, every bit of where Kobe was,
Of course.
if not more,
Yeah.
if not more.
Yeah, there's no debating LeBron's work ethic is exemplary. He's just it's just been awesome to watch this. It's surprising to me. I thought the younger players would step up a little more in terms of carrying the load, but this has been LeBron, this has been AD, this has been Steph. Anyone else we're missing who
Durant? Oh yeah,
Who?
and Katie.
Well, this is the first game.
Yeah.
It was a great opening game for him finally. And Andres Million, I'll wrap it up with him in the chat. Unless Casey, there's anything that sticks out to you saying
I think he's right.
We're talking about superstars. They can fit anywhere if their egos permit. And the egos thing is really, I think, what is the biggest impediment to just give me anybody, right? Like you got to make these egos work. And I'm very curious to see if Jason Tatum's ego was okay with that. I think that's where
you may never know.
So
I don't think he'll say anything, and I think it goes back to you're on a LeBron-led team, and the respect that they have for him. Forget about Steve; it won't matter because it's always players over coaches. For players, it's always players over coaches. LeBron's in the room, and I don't take this right. They're not afraid of him, but they're afraid of him. They don't need to be afraid of Steve Kerr. LeBron is like a different figure for these guys, especially guys like Tatum, who like grew up idolizing this player and then watching. Like when you hear Kevin Durant talk about anyone and then you hear talk about LeBron, it's like two totally different things. I think with that, he's not going to open. He may feel the way you think, but he's telling Mom he's not going to tell the press because he doesn't want LeBron to hear it because they're not going to. You don't want to walk back into a locker room that's led by LeBron James and have him hear that you're complaining about minutes. So he probably feels that way, but I don't think he's telling anyone outside of his family member.
You're absolutely right, man. And Team USA, again, you and I do this every Monday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern time. I've been going live. I went live yesterday morning right after USA Serbia. I'm going to go live again. The next game for Team USA, I believe, is South Sudan. And this game's going to be Wednesday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. I'm going live immediately after that if you want to tune in. Casey, what do you have coming up, man? Hype up Unfiltered with Casey Stern.
Well, the trade deadline for Major League Baseball is tomorrow, 6:00 Eastern. So we'll have a trade deadline recap. Recently had Steve Phillips, former GM of the Mets.
I saw that. That's a good grab, man. Good grab.
So we can check that out. And yeah, we will have plenty on the trade deadline, and then the Olympics. Obviously, we'll get into some USA basketball here a week from now, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this develops. I think they'll be okay, but I'm hoping for some drama too. I mean, I'm hoping they get tested because it'll be more fun to talk about if they do.
I'm obviously Northern California based, so I don't know how much you're covering the Oakland A's on your show, but
I know what's going on with them. But yeah,
has there ever been a worse owner in Major League Baseball?
No. In my opinion, no. No, the disaster of the way that was handled, and you can shameless plugging, but if you go into Unfiltered with Casey Stern, either in the podcast variety, Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast, or go onto the YouTube channel, you will be able to scroll down to where the announcement was made that they were selling that team, and I did an entire episode dedicated to it, so you can get my my thoughts on Fisher and the rest of that group. But it's no, nobody worse. Does not give a shit. Went into the presser and is sitting there talking about all this great stuff they're going to do in front of 14 people in Sacramento. Like, I don't even want to hear about it. It's a joke.
It's a crime, man. It's an absolute crime.
It is.
What is
shame.
not a crime is subscribing to Unfiltered, hosted by Casey Stern. Always a pleasure doing this with you, man.
You too, sir.
Go ahead. Sorry, what?
No, I said you too.
Oh yeah, I love you, man. And again, if anyone out there in the media game who is in Georgia who needs a talent, look no further. Look no further. His DMs are open, so reach out. Love you, man. Anything else? Are we good? We done?
No, appreciate you. Looking forward to doing it next week. And everybody enjoy your week and life and sports in that order, because we got to prioritize and be smart about it. Life first, then sports. But enjoy both. Yeah, we'll do it next week.